Drawing editorial comics. All you need is a point of view. Let's get started. Hi, folks. Elgin Subway Surfer Bolling here, your creative caricature marketing consultant, drawing editorial comics. Because, let's face it, everybody has a point of view, especially now in this era of politics. Everybody is somewhat informed of what's going on in the world, and it doesn't matter what your particular position is. As long as it's a position that you can argue from, you can be an editorial artist. I'm going to give an autobiographical account on how I became an editorial artist, and I'm hoping that by telling my story, you'll be able to glean from it ways that you too can become an editorial artist. And let me tell you, folks, it's so much fun. I wouldn't participate in any type of artwork that wasn't fun, and this is no exception. So let's get started. Here we go. Let me tell you how I got started, how I got the idea of doing political cartoons. The year was 2008. I was in Manhattan doing my thing, street caricature, with my partner in crime, Mr. Kenley Disneyland Dillard. And from what I remember, it was a pretty slow day. And we did what we always did when it was a slow day. We got out our sketch pads and tried to outdo each other with funny cartoons. Now, it being an election year, and that year, the plucky Illinois Senator Barack Hussein Obama was battling it out in the political arena against John McCain. The physical differences between the two were hilarious enough for us to have a lot of fun drawing political cartoons, which we did. At the end of the day, we looked at what we had drawn, and I turned to Kenley and said, "Hey, these are really, really good that you did. You should turn them over to a newspaper." He laughed, went home to Brooklyn, and I headed out to Far Rockaway where I lived. On the train ride home, I couldn't get it out of my head. I said to myself, I should really take my own advice and hand these over to my local newspaper. If you're taking notes, this is step number 1 on how to become an editorial artist. Like I said, I approached the Wave newspaper in Far Rockaway. Far Rockaway is a section of Queens that I lived in at the time, and they had a local weekly paper called The Wave News. I thought, well, they're not going to pay me outright for these cartoons, but they're timely. I've got to approach them now on the cartoons that I've drawn so that they can at least print it in there, and I can get some kind of notoriety at least for having some of my cartoons printed in the newspaper. So I approached the editor. He looked at it. He started laughing, which was a good sign, and he said he'd put it in the next issue, which he did. When I came back the next week, he asked, "Do you have any more?" Of course I did. I had done several cartoons, so I gave him the next one in the batch. Then I came back the following week, that he asked the same question, "Do you have any more?" This went on for, I'd say, about a month until he finally said, "How'd you like to get paid to do this?" And I said, "Oh, golly gee, do you really mean it? I was just doing it for fun." Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And that's how it started. To make a long story short, you start by approaching with your cartoons on an issue that is trending, that is current. Get several cartoons. Go to one of your weekly newspapers. Every town has one. And just present them with the cartoons. Don't ask for pay. Not right away. They'll make you an offer if they're interested. And even if they don't, it will be a legitimate portfolio piece that you can use to parlay for a position as an editorial artist somewhere else because you have something that's been printed by a major newspaper. Get it? Good. To continue, once you get hired by the paper to do cartoons, do yourself a favor and pick up back issues of that paper. Start reading the editorial section. More than likely, you're going to be working very closely with the editor-in-chief of the newspaper, the one who writes the editorial articles for the newspaper. By doing this, you'll find out very quickly what the political climate of that particular newspaper is. I also suggest that you start listening to news broadcasts, podcasts, videos, and you have to do a lot of reading. News magazines like Newsweek, Time magazines, the big ones, newspapers like the New York Times, you get the picture. I don't have to name every newspaper, every magazine. What I'm trying to say is that you need to become politically astute. It's all right to have your own specific point of view, but you can draw more powerful, insightful, and compelling cartoons if you're thoroughly familiar with both sides of an argument. You must be politically astute. Once you become comfortable with your reading, these cartoons will just flow out of you. I guarantee it. I need to tell you right now, don't become intimidated. You don't need to become a political historian in order to do this job. There will be times where you're going to be reporting on national or international issues, but there are also many of opportunities to report on local issues that are only happening in your community and make sense to people in that community. And that's the time where you can really let your hair down and draw more whimsical stuff. You may ask this question: how good of an artist do I have to be in order to do editorial cartoons? While it is helpful to be able to do caricature, you don't need to. Doing editorial cartoons is very, very open to whatever style of drawing that you do, no matter how photorealistic it is or how cartoony and sketchy it is. I've seen all types. So don't feel that you have to draw really, really, really extremely well, doing photorealistic type of drawings of politicians who look exactly like the politicians. No, oftentimes what political artists do, they do their own cartoony rendition of a particular political figure or celebrity, and that becomes their signature drawing of him. And sometimes it doesn't even really look like the person. Like, for instance, I've noticed when people are drawing President Trump, who is a tall man, they usually draw him short and fat. That's not how he looks, but it's more of an attitude of the artist. It works for what they're doing and what they're portraying. And this is where personality comes into drawing. Bring whatever personality you have, even if it's a small one, bring it to whatever you are drawing, and it will make you stand out. One thing that I highly, highly recommend is that you become a fan yourself of political art. Great thing about it is there are thousands of examples to choose from over the years. All you have to do now is a Google search on political cartoons. You just choose a couple of newspapers, pour over the illustrations, and copy them. Copying is a great way to learn the line work, the expressions, the body language of a particular artist. It's like getting a free art lesson. Now, when I say copy, I don't mean copy and plagiarize it for your own. You're copying to kind of get into a groove. It's kind of like when you learn how to write, you trace letters. So we do the same thing with art. We trace artwork so that we can develop that eye-hand coordination and get into the artist's head. This is an excellent exercise for developing this art form. I did it. The other great artists do it. And, well, since you want to be great and you're listening to this video, you should do it too. Okay, listen up. This advice I'm about to give now is relevant, especially to political cartooning. And I call it, quotation marks, mend your own cartoon stew, end quote. What do I mean by that? Pretend that your imagination is like a big cauldron with soup in it that you constantly have to be adding ingredients to make it flavorful and appealing, because you're constantly going to be dipping into that soup, giving it out, giving it out, giving it out. And so you can never let that stew run dry, or you're going to be out of ideas, or you'll be scraping the sides of the pot using the same old tired things that you've already talked about. You have to pay attention to what's happening in the culture, not just on the political arena, but just regular everyday things that typical people, that ordinary normal people, do they even exist? That people, period, that's better, are interested in. The latest dance steps, what are they wearing? What's trending in fashion? What expressions are people using every day? What's the new slang? What TV shows are they watching? What's popular with sitcoms lately? What records are out? Records. Oh my God, I'm dating myself. What songs are out? What musicians are very popular? What comedians are popular? What are they saying? You want to mix all of this in to your cartoon stew and mix it up. I'm telling you, when you do this, it's going to somehow merge and come together in your political cartoons, because a lot of political cartoons is based on allegory and it's based on analogy. You want to have some type of visual hook or verbal hook if you're also writing editorial cartoons yourself, captions and such. You want to have all of that come together in one delicious bowl of soup, and your readers will love it. I guarantee it. Okay, folks, here we are at the end. I hope I've motivated you sufficiently to consider becoming an editorial artist yourself. Like I said, it's a fun, lucrative art form that you can definitely do, and it's very accessible. To recap, first, approach your local newspaper. Have the cartoons already ready. Number 2, become a student of the art form by practicing and poring over editorial material. Number 3, don't worry about your particular art style. Your art style is fine and you will develop greater skill over time. And okay, 4, yeah, I know I'm doing them out of sequence. 4, make sure you study. Read newspapers, listen to podcasts, listen to news broadcasts. Become politically astute and aware. It will add more power and authority to your cartoons and give you a more informed point of view. You don't want to just have a point of view that's lopsided. You want to have an informed point of view so you can work out the little subtle nuances in your cartoons. You're going to have fun doing this. Well, folks, that's it. I hope that this broadcast has been compelling, engaging, thought-provoking, interesting, funny, lighthearted. I'm all out of adjectives. I've just used up my whole list. But if you found this helpful and you'd like to see more great content like this was great, wasn't it? I hope it was. At any rate, if you'd like to see more of it, please comment and subscribe. I love to hear your comments, and I love it when you subscribe. Please subscribe. Come on, don't just listen to it and just go away. I'm not too proud to beg. This is Elgin, Subway Surfer Bolling, your creative caricature marketing consultant. As always, my email address is cartoons4u2@aol.com. That's cartoons, the number 4, the letter U, the number 2 at aol.com. Hey folks, the random cartoons that you saw in this video are taken from a collection of editorial cartoons that I have done over the years for the Wave newspaper. So that's kind of why you look at a cartoon and it didn't seem to go with what I was talking about. Okay? I wasn't being random just for being random.